Hey everyone, it's Mike with It's Pittsfield Tonight. It is Thursday, April 16th, and I'm going to jump right into it. So we're going to start with the big news of the day, which is the Pittsfield School Committee last night, Wednesday the 15th, during their last school committee meeting, voted to close Morningside Community School at the end of the school year. And I don't think anyone is surprised about that. There's definitely people upset about it. There's no doubt there, but I don't think anyone's surprised about it. And I've said this the last couple videos I've done. I don't think this is the last we're going to hear about closing a school. I can't say this enough. Pittsfield's population is continuing to drop. Pittsfield's public school enrollment is continuing to drop. We're down to, I think, around 4,700 students, something along those lines, and projected to lose more every year. And this happened in the 1980s. Many people will remember a lot of schools were closed in the 1980s. And that was due to GE increasing their layoffs as they were weaning their way out of the community. And it is what it is. It's sad because I have received a lot of messages on this one. A few parents very upset and saying, that's it, I'm choicing my kids out. I received probably 5 or 6 messages from people saying, why not Allendale? With all the buzz around Allendale and the talk of PCBs and health issues. And, I really don't know enough on that subject, but I do understand people being upset. I know that's been something that has been discussed in depth in the community. I know that there's lawsuits that have been filed, but I don't know any specifics on that. So I can't really speak on that, but that's something I am going to try to dig into a little bit more and get some more information on. But I can see where that would cause fears and panic in some people. The part about how can we integrate these kids into other schools, I'm afraid this is going to happen to them and that's going to happen to them and they're going to be outcasts or bullied. I don't really understand that argument. Pittsfield's pretty small. Very small community. So, you're not talking about sending somebody far away. You're talking a couple miles down the street, most likely. But I do understand relocating, a lot of people, when you move into a neighborhood, whether you own or rent, one of the main factors, if you're a young family or a starting family with children in the public school system, is what's the proximity to a school? That's important to a lot of people. We promote micro transportation, micro mobility, I think is what our Commissioner of Public Works called it. But, weaning people off of cars. Well, it's pretty tough to exist in a community like ours without a car. Public transportation is weak at best. You can't ride bicycles year round. I know some people do with the e-bikes. I've talked about that before, but you're not going to do that transporting children to school. But I do understand that what is happening from a budget point of view and from a population point of view and from a school enrollment point of view. We have many schools that are in desperate need of repair or work or just a new school. That's another thing that the school committee has discussed, or the city council has discussed, is putting us on a list to see if it's possible to get money from the state to redo Pittsfield High School. Again, we got to look at these numbers closely. When people say, well, Taconic isn't quite big enough to fit all the high school population, I see that where we're at now, but where are we in 10 years? Are we down another 1,000 students? Are we approaching 3,500 students in 10 years or less? That's possible. The demographics of the community are changing. Young people don't stay here. I don't know if that's going to change. So anyway, there's a lot to talk about on this issue, and I do read every message that comes my way. And if you've got something to say, believe me, I will read your message and I will look at your concerns, and I'm going to dig into this a little bit deeper. But at the end of the day, this is where we're at. The Pittsfield School Committee did make the decision to close Morningside Community School at the end of the school year. So that's that, and we'll be talking more about that. I did have a chance to sit down with Mayor Marchetti at City Hall yesterday. I'll be putting those, breaking it into, it was a long interview. We talked about the community challenges, business growth, how we help existing businesses. We had a discussion about all that. And as many of you know, I often talk about some of the serious challenges in the state of Massachusetts. And the fact that Pittsfield has one of the highest commercial tax rates in the state, and the state is one of the most expensive states in the country to do business in. So those create some serious challenges. And those challenges, when you look at data and you look at complaints from businesses, are, it's overregulated, high taxes, some of the highest utilities in the country, insurance costs, high payroll costs. There's a lot of factors that build into that. And over the past year, the state has lost about 35,000 residents. And over the past few years, they've lost over 5,000 businesses. And the state passed that millionaire's tax, which again, I thought was crazy personally. And a couple people messaged me on that saying, you don't think millionaires should pay their fair share? That's not even the discussion. That's a whole different discussion. My point with that millionaire's tax is anybody making $1 million a year or more, they added an additional 4% tax, effectively raising their taxes to 9%. When you have that money, you have the means. If somebody who's in that income bracket, you have the means to move. And when you can move right over the state line to another state, or move to Florida, or move to somewhere and save yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, that's what's going to happen. That is what's going to happen, and that is what we're seeing. If it was a federal policy, that's a different story and a totally different conversation. But when the state of Massachusetts is basically saying, we're going to take more of your money and you have an opportunity to take that money and move somewhere else, what do you think is going to happen? And that's a challenge for the state of Massachusetts. You're telling people in that income bracket, we're going to take more of your money, 4% more, and somebody, especially somebody retired making that kind of money, they're going to move. A small business owner making that kind of money is going to move. Because don't think they're not paying. Again, they're paying some of the highest commercial tax rates in the state. So we talked about that. We touched on a lot of those things because those are serious challenges. And I don't know what the answer to that is. How do you overcome some of those? Because opening a business at the end of the day is about money and margins. That's what it's about. So I'll be putting part 1 of that interview out later today and part 2 tomorrow. I have an upcoming interview with Dashine Moore. Dashine is a friend of mine, and he runs the Beat the Streets program and getting ready to kick off the 2026 season. So Dash and I will be doing a video in the next day or two on that. Also, Steve Bateman, another good friend of mine. I've known Steve for, I'm embarrassed to say how long. It shows how old I am, but at least 40 years. So I'll be doing an upcoming video with Steve. Steve is the founder of the Harry Bateman Memorial Fishing Derby, which is on its 33rd year, I believe, 33rd or 34th year, that raises a lot of money for Dana-Farber and through the Jemmy Fund. And it's probably one of the most exciting events to kick off summer that we have. It draws hundreds of kids and families to that fishing derby every year at Onoda Lake at the Frank Controy Pavilion. So I'll be doing a special video again with Steve promoting that and just a bunch of cool stuff coming up. So that is it for now, and it's a lot to talk about. There's no doubt. I am going to be reaching out to Ricardo Morales last night during that school committee meeting, and I think most people were watching the school committee meeting, was the Street Safety Action Plan meeting at Hot Plate Brewery. I did have a chance to touch on that a little bit with Mayor Marchetti, but I will be reaching out to Commissioner Morales to see if there's any way that can be rescheduled, because most people eyes were on that school committee meeting. That was a big one. When you're talking about closing one of our community schools, that is where I think the focus was. And then, of course, that conversation about why at Hot Plate? Why at a bar or a brewery? That was one that I received a lot of messages on that one. And again, I did have a chance to mention that and talk about that a little bit with Mayor Marchetti in that interview. So, but I will reach out to Ricardo Morales. I still plan on reaching out to Chief Mark Madalena. I want to talk about some of the things going on North Street. And I did see the PPD put out a post saying that, they did make their undercover officers made some arrests the other day, including an arrest on North Street for some individuals drinking in public. I still, and I appreciate the work the PPD does. Don't get me wrong. I've always been a supporter. But I still think community policing, a uniformed community police presence, is proactive. It builds a good relationship with merchants, with residents, and it is proactive. And so I appreciate that we had undercover officers on North Street that caught people drinking, but wouldn't it be better to have community policing and prevent all that from happening in the first place? So rather than being reactive, being proactive and building that presence. Because another thing I'm going to touch on when I talk to Chief Madalena, if he has some information, is where in the world is Darren Derby? I think that's a big void in the community. And a lot of people, if you've noticed, he's kind of gone. His Facebook page, everything. So I'd like to find out is what happened. What happened to Officer Derby? He was a big part of the Pittsfield Police Department's PR. Kids loved him. He did a lot of work with public relations for the department. So that's a lot. But all right, that's everything. So there's a ton coming up. Pay attention. Get involved. Pay attention and get involved as much as you can. The more people that get involved and speak up in the community, the better shape we'll be in. Don't stay silent. Don't sit on the sidelines. Get involved. Be respectful, but get involved. All right, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll catch you all in the next day or two.